Welcome, 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 everybody, to another Sunday of When Black Women Gather. My name is Helen Higginbotham, and today we are going to talk about the new hit movie Sinners by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan and a whole bunch of other folks that we're going to talk about. But we're going to start this conversation out with Cleo Manago. Thank you, Cleo, for hanging out with us this afternoon.
Hello, Higgi. Thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here. This is a great topic, and it's good to see your folks again. Hello, y'all.
Yeah.
Hello.
And Angela Cooper. Hey, Angela. Thank you so much. Angela's on the phone. She's en route. She's with us for the first hour. Thank you, Angela. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's everyone?
Very good. And we have
Very good.
Roderick Giles, who is also going to talk to us about the film. And he's the cinematic, what can I call you? The cinematic expert? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm a filmmaker, so
Okay.
I mean, I think that covers it.
Yeah, there
And a
was so
short
much.
film, so and
Oh, okay. Great, great. And you're in New York City?
I'm in New York. Yes.
Okay, great, great. So thank you, Gary. Gary Brewer is a good friend of mine. He's also into film and he recommended Roderick to speak with us today. So we're just gonna talk in general about um what we uh what we thought of the film, what drew us to see the film. I have to tell you, for those of you who remember when I was in New Jersey, that I had a relationship with the AMC Theater, and whenever there was a new any Black movie that came out, they kind of let me have the theater, and we would watch the film together as a community and then stay and discuss it for 45 minutes to an hour or whatever afterwards. And it was always, filled to, capacity and great, great conversation. So this film, I have to tell you, was not on my radar because I don't do horror. So all I heard was the horror. And
Mm.
Angela called and she's like, "Oh no, Helen, you got to review this film." So thank you, Angela, because I probably would have seen it by now because there's so much talk about it. But Angela called me before I'd heard about it, but not to the extent that I'm hearing about it now. So I
I had a,
saw it only once. I saw it Wednesday. Go ahead, Cleo. What were you gonna say?
and I was just going to kind of co-sign what you said, Helen, about how you found out about it. I was not interested in this film. When it comes to any kind of film, I'm cynical. I've checked out of pop culture, and I'm not interested. And a good friend of mine just send me an email that just said "GO!" exclamation point. They didn't explain. They didn't give me no background. I didn't know. I didn't even know it was a horror film. I didn't know about no vampires or none of that. He just said go, and I trust him, so I went. And I must say, I'm very glad that I did. But I would not have gone if I didn't get the call.
How about you, Angela? What inspired you to go see the film?
Well, I try to make it a point to support Black films, that especially Black
Bravo.
films of substance. And I knew that it was going to be of substance because of who produced the film and who was starring in the film. Um, and so I started to read some previews. I'm not a horror movie person, but I realized from the previews and from some pre-release interviews that it was much more than just a horror film. So I made a point to make sure I went to see it. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I have to call Helen because there has to be discussion about this film because it's so much more. It's so much packed into that 2 hours and 14 minutes. And then that's why I had to go see it a second time. And that's why I intend to see it a third time because the second time I got so much more out of it. And how the mind works. I'm trying to process that, and I'm sure something else passed through. So I just want to make sure it was just so well done. And I think that it honestly is one of the best films I've ever seen.
That's what they're saying. Roderick, what drew you to see the film And what is your walk away impression from it?
Well, I'm a filmmaker first and foremost, so I see almost everything that comes out, particularly when it's targeted at our niche market, people of African American descent. And I like Ryan as both. I like both the actor and the director. And in regards to the genre, I'll go watch a horror film. I'm not necessarily a fan of horror films, but I really look at films in terms of how it affects me and the audience. And the topic of the film, in context of what's going on politically. And so that is something that struck me that was very powerful about this film.
Yeah,
I'm so out of it.
definitely.
I'm so out of it. I'm a Ryan Coogler fan. I'm so
Yeah.
out of it. I didn't even know he had anything to do with it. I didn't know any of these people had anything to do because Ryan Coogler's name would have piqued my interest, but I didn't know. All I saw was Sinners. I said, okay, whatever. And then I found then I
Yeah,
found out everything else.
yeah.
I
So,
met Ryan Coogler. Can I just tell us a little story? Or is it too early?
please, no,
Okay.
go ahead.
In 2013, I was asked to be on a panel with Mr. Coogler to talk about his film Fruitvale Station. And he was so young. I mean, he looked like a baby. He baby face. He that was over 10 years ago, so he still looks young, but he looked like he's getting ready to eat a lollipop back then. And there's two things about the film that I talked after the film was over, which was a great film. I talked to him in the lobby because even though Fruitvale Station was a great film, I have some concerns about the media and how it portrays Black people. And the guy who happened to be murdered by the cops in the film had a non-Black female partner and had a biracial child. So when I met with him in the lobby, and I like to think that maybe I had a little bit to do with what he's done in the future, but I said to him, I said, do you have any, we had a long conversation in the open where it was appropriate within the conversation. I brought up the child in the film, his film. And then I asked him as a segue, do you have any children? And I was trying to be slick to try to find out if his partner was Black. That's what I was trying to do, but I didn't tell him that. But I said, do you have any children? And he says, no, I have no children. I said, well, when you do have them, you have any idea who you're going to have them with? That was my, and he pointed, and he pointed
That's a loaded question.
He pointed to this beautiful Black woman. Her name is Zinzin or something like that. He says probably gonna be with her. So I saw that she was Black, and that was my cue. And I said, okay, well, your film was great, but I think as a filmmaker, please make films that show demonstrative love stories between Black people. And that makes it really clear that two Black people who look like Black people from across the street and up close, not ambiguously Black, but who look Black all the time, are loving each other in very clear ways. And he looked at me and he laughed, but not in a very nice way. He said, "Okay, brother." We hugged, and I haven't seen him since. And here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So,
Well, I think in his defense, I think Fruitvale was a true story.
Oh, it was.
So
It
is.
Oh no, he
had
nothing to defend. I was just using the contrast to make a point. It's a great film, and you're absolutely right. It's a biography, and he didn't choose nobody's partner, nothing like that. I just was trying to get him as a future filmmaker because there was not that many films back then, like now, that showed that showed dimensional, juicy love stories between Black people.
Right.
Not since Claudine.
Well, Claudine wasn't that juicy, but they did love each other.
Right. So for me, again, the context in terms of when Fruitvale Station was made and when this was made, what's going on politically in America? What's going on? And so there had been many attacks on African American men.
That's right.
And it had gone through the judicial system, and it never wound up being just. I believe that's my opinion.
You're right.
and or even spoken about at all. Whereas Cleveland Station comes up, and then you see and hear, and the outcome, right, was what the outcome should have been in several other situations that were happening in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie
And
definitely.
as filmmakers,
Mhm.
filmmakers, you often have to show society, and I'm not being arrogant about it, but show society sometimes what to do right, or show society in the film doing right, rather. Let me say that.
Yeah,
And
this
that's what
film
that did. And his
definitely it was a reflection of what we're dealing with now. Can you all drop in the chat how many times you've seen the film? I'm just curious how many people have seen it more than once. And I'm looking at some of the chats when we were talking about what drew you to see it, and somebody said people were talking about it, they didn't want to miss out. Um, and Carol Chang, you're on my page. She was like, I don't do horror movies, but we got through it. And even from that perspective, I think that if you're a real horror movie person, you probably thought that was mild. But if you're somebody like me and Carol, you're probably like, no, that was horror. And I was glad I saw it during the day. I was glad I saw it during the day, and I was out about it because I think because of the nature, the context of the movie, and I'm in a theater that was basically empty, very dark. And I'm in a white town, so I'm like, oh hell, I'm looking at white people trying to see who's the real vampires here. But yeah, so it was interesting from that perspective to see it. And I see Miss Phyllis hasn't seen it yet, but I don't think this. I think you'll still be inspired to see it after you hear us talk about it today. So, Angela, I know that you are not going to be with us long. So, talk to me about I know this is a broad question, so you don't have to go into everything, but or should we go through the characters first, or should we talk about what were the major takeaways first? What do you guys want to do?
I think the takeaway.
Yeah, I think the
Okay.
takeaways.
All right, so go ahead, Angela. We'll start with you.
Well, first of all, with regard to it being a horror movie itself, I've seen very few horror movies in my life. And the few that I've seen, there was no purpose. I mean, you know what a vampire is, you know what a vampire does, you know what kills a vampire, the very basics. But what was different for me in this movie is that Ramick was very specific about who he was and what he was after. He was after Sammy, and he was after the music. And then to encompass the other white couple, and to bring in and to kill, and and he saw it. I mean, if you remember when he was talking to I can't remember the white girl's name that was
Mary?
connected to
Mary.
Mary. Yeah, Mary. And he was trying to convince her that this gives you everlasting life, that we're saving you. He saw himself as a savior more than somebody who's destroying and killing. So that was one thing that kind of stuck out in my mind in terms of the horror genre itself. That it wasn't they were just arbitrarily killing people. They had a purpose, and they had a cause, and they were on a mission to do that. But like I said last night, Helen, the music, the Southern Delta music itself was such a strong a theme for me, and the importance of music, and the importance of that music in terms of our culture, in terms of the coming out of the Jim Crow South, and that it still something that they're trying to co-opt from us, you know, and that was a very, very strong theme to me.
For sure. Cleo, your overriding, because we'll talk more in depth about all of this, but what was your overriding takeaway from?
Well, Ryan Coogler is a strategist. He used Black Panther to showcase and affirm and lift up African cultures, African spirituality, African symbology, Black on Black love. And if he went to Hollywood and said, "Okay, I want to make a film that affirms Black people," he would have got no budget. He wouldn't have got any resources to do that. If he went to the white folks who are, because only white people, unfortunately, have the power to greenlight films. Tyler Perry, none of them have the power to greenlight films. Only white people do in this country at this point. If he would have went to white folks and said, "I'm going to make a picture that shows Black people loving each other, that's going to make white men the devil," literally, like Malcolm X said, that's going to really unpack the impact of no support. He called it a yes. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. No, you were going
Well,
in and out. You're going in and out, but go ahead.
I hate that, but you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yes.
If he had to put it in a horror film genre context to get the support from Hollywood to make the film. The boy is brilliant. The film is very symbolically powerful, and almost all of the content of the words and the conversations underscore what Black people have really gone through in terms of lynchings, in terms of watching out for white folks who ain't all the way white, and mixed Black folks, and who to trust and who not to trust, and the beauty of the music, and just so many things that we probably get into before it's over. The bottom line is that horror, etc., is just a container in which a powerful theme and message was placed to make sure it got to the masses. And he was very successful. And it's not a horror film. It's not a horror film in the traditional sense. It's a masterpiece storytelling phenomenon.
Absolutely. Surely. Roderick, real quickly, what was your major takeaway from it?
That's a tough one. When you say real quickly, I never do anything real quickly. I'm a filmmaker. But I'll say my takeaway is I enjoyed it. Right. There was truth and fact and historical references. And if anyone had seen any of his interviews that he talked about, his origin, his connection to his family and music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that was powerful. And music has always been a thing in our culture. Like America wouldn't have any music without our culture. The other thing about it is that for me was that the fact that he brought in the Irish music. and in both instances, it was folk music. You know, the blues is truly about, blues. And yeah, and not to go deeply, but there's always been a element of blues in all of the music that's come from Black folks. Hip hop is a form of the blues. And so when you can introduce the historical references and not shy away from them because they're truthful, but in this present time when books are being banned and statues are being torn down and equity is being removed, fairness, it's interesting that we see this film on the big screen, the bigger than life screen, and it's telling about those circumstances and situations in terms of what propagates prejudice, racism, and all the negativisms.
The timing could be no more perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Right. And the ending spoke, but I know we'll come to that.
Oh yeah, I was so happy with the ending, and we will talk about that. So for me, you all have definitely hit on what were the major takeaways. I mean, it was about the music, it was about the historical journey of Black people in this country, from the times of slavery up until what we're dealing with right now. And one of the things that Angela touched on was when Remick, the lead vampire, was trying to get into the juke joint, and he kept saying to them, "You might as well let me in." What did he say, Angela? Because you're not free, or you're like, he was talking
Yeah,
to
you'll
the
never
Black.
be free. You'll never be free.
You'll never be free. You'll never be free. You might as well let me in. And he's talking to Black people because when you see the movie, the one white woman who we definitely have to discuss her role in this thing, she's inside, but they won't let the other white folks in. But what that made me think of instantly, I thought of Donald Trump saying to Black folks in the previous election, maybe this election, "You might as well vote for me. What do you have to lose?" It was the same kind of thing that went right to
Mm-hmm.
my head when
That's
he
right.
said that.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and then I
And now
had
we see what
notes.
we have to lose.
Yeah, how about that? Some people fell for it, right?
Yeah.
But was a big thing, the symbolism of the vampires, and I think Cleo hit on that. Like, it was just a symbolism because we were talking about, vampires, people who prey on us as a society, whether it's our music, our soul, who we are, what have you. And the
Our bodies.
vampire, right, everything,
The
right.
the other part of that is the mythology around being invincible. Even though I'll take on like a persona of evil, I'm still invincible. So no matter, other than throwing out garlic or a steak to my heart and daylight, which is aligned with being enlightened, being awakened, seeing, I'm invincible. In the dark, I'm invincible.
That's good symbolism. Yes, for sure. Um, So yeah, the other thing we can't miss on is the mixture, and I think Roderick, you talked about well, let's talk about how they went through the genres of Black music when they were in the juke joint. And what somebody even said something about the roof is on fire. Like, it was so
Yeah.
much energy
Yes.
happening, so much energy happening under that roof that the roof catches a fire.
Well,
But
that's a thing that people used to chant too, right? And at the parties, at colleges,
yes,
we go to parties or house parties. That was very, very connected to culture and the things that happen within culture.
so bring in, if you don't mind, any of you, the relevance of the Irish. I think we had Native Americans, we had Irish, and we had
Chinese.
the Asians. So can we talk about what was the
And
significance
and
of?
the and
I think
don't forget the Indians,
No,
the
I said
Native
Native
Americans.
American.
The
Mhm.
Choctaw.
Okay.
Native American
They were
indigenous in the
Choctaw.
beginning.
They were
Choctaw,
Choctaw.
right?
Choctaw, right.
I think they were all representative of the oppressed people.
Mhm.
Because the Irish were oppressed at one time. The Chinese were definitely oppressed at one time. And the Indians and how they treated the Indians.
Right. And remember, it's the Native American who tells the white man, "Don't let that man in your house."
Mhm.
Right.
Once again, the white man does not listen to the Native American. And he goes on about his business. He rides off into, like, "Hey, the sun getting ready to go down. Let's go. We tried."
Right. And in the Mississippi
somebody,
Delta at one time, the Chinese supermarkets were the only places that Black people were served. The Chinese supermarkets and the Chinese restaurants in the Mississippi Delta.
now we
Right.
forgot to say this thing is happening in 1932 in the Mississippi Delta. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation. But yeah, so let's talk about them. So I think we can see why the Asians were there. So I think this whole thing around the Irish, because the Irish guy is also, was that his father who was the Klan member? Help me with that. No, I see you shaking your head.
I don't think that was
Cleo,
his father.
what was the connection?
I don't think that was his father.
He knew the Klan was coming, or the Klan knew that the vampires were coming. Which
this was a ambush. This was a familiar, similar ambush that they had done before.
Eminent domain, right. Eminent domain. I'm gonna take it over once it's set up. Absolutely.
And you may remember they mentioned blood on the floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which indicated that this was the first time. This was a death trap that they had set up before to kill Black people.
Right.
So they weren't right. So they weren't necessarily related. They were part of the same racist, anti-Black destruction group, and they knew about what each other was going to do. So their relationship, whether it was maternal or whatever, is not really relevant. They were all related to the agenda to harm
ideology.
Yes,
ideology.
Because the guy who got the Klan member that was later shot was not a vampire. You know, he was a quote unquote normal person.
Well, he was a vampire of sorts.
Yeah.
Well, he was.
But yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. But you're right.
He could walk around during the day. The other guy could not.
Right.
So Diane says in the chat, the white man that sold them the property was the dragon of the KKK and the man's father or uncle. So Diane, are you saying Remit's father or uncle?
Well, how could that be?
I don't know. For some reason,
You
go ahead,
remember,
Diane. What are you saying? Go ahead,
what
Diane.
I'm saying is they were related because what they said to them was, we're coming for you first, but we'll get his family member later. We're going to get all the Ku Klux Klan. They were going to make them all into vampires.
I had a question too. I don't know if you guys saw it earlier. The white guy that showed up at the couple's house, like burnt up, and the Indians were looking for him. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And during the day.
During the day. So can someone like walk me through that whole scene? And did he show up burnt up because it was daytime?
Yes.
Yes.
It was about 5 or 6. It wasn't daytime. It was late.
It was early in the morning.
It was dusk.
Early in the morning?
No, it wasn't early in the morning because the Choctaws,
nighttime.
the Choctaws right after him.
So
right.
Yeah, the Indians were after him on the horse.
The sun was setting, and that's why they got out of Dodge.
And the vampire wanted to get inside of that house before it was too late.
Right, because he was smoking. He was starting to burn up.
Yes.
Got it. So yeah, okay. I just want to, because he was banging on the door, and it just happened so quickly that I just couldn't put it together. But okay, perfect.
And I think when he saw the Klan costume, and I call it a costume, he knew that all he had to do, the first thing he mentioned was the Choctaw, because he knew they were, I got me one right here. These people are going to let me in.
I thought he told them they were fair-skinned Negroes. I thought he said they were fair-skinned Negroes.
No, that's what the white man, that's what the homeowner said. Are you sure they weren't just fair-skinned Negroes?
Right. Okay.
You can't tell the Choctaw. That's crazy.
Renee, that was a good question.
That was a good one.
That was a good question, Renee, because I thought of that after we spoke last night. Because the three of us spoke. Yeah. So, and I'm like, but that makes sense. But if you understand vampires, then you got that.
And just to kind of elaborate, so the Indians didn't get killed like the Black folk. I mean, why are the Indians not like being bitten up by the vampires? Is that?
But because it was only one vampire, it was only one, and it was a bunch of Indians, and they probably had stakes because they appeared to be vampire hunters. So I just about the significance in these vampire myths we hear. Are Indians vampire hunters? I don't know. Or is it what you
They were
said?
definitely tracking him.
Or is it what you said that
They
they kept
were.
showing underrepresented people, different
I think the Native American, I think the Choctaws were represented because they know firsthand, and I put this in the chat, the deceitfulness of the white man.
That's right.
The symbolism.
They said
Yeah.
he is not who
That's
he
right.
claims to be.
That's right.
And when they wouldn't listen, they said, "We out," because we know what
Right.
y'all about to deal with. So they
Right.
left.
And
It
the
was
sun
Native.
was
It
going
was
down.
Native. It was Native
Spirituality.
American. It was Native Americans who came up with the famous line, "They have forked tongue."
Right.
They can't be trusted. They
but
cannot
also
be trusted.
keep in mind this, that the Native Americans largely within their communities kept their cultural norms, their traditions. Africans were not. It was stripped from them. It was stripped from the Native Americans as well, but not like it was stripped from us.
Yep,
If you think about what the guy said at the end when he started saying "Our Father" when they were both in the water, and the Irish guy said it too. He said, "Yeah, they taught me this propaganda too when they took my father's land."
Amen.
So I believe that the Indians had an advantage because they understood their spiritual belief. Whereas even in the
That's
house,
right.
you saw how people
right.
kept challenging her when she was like, "Well, do you have your mojo bag on?" And he was like, "Always." And when they asked her, "What did you throw on him for smoke to run out?" And she said, "Pickle juice and garlic."
Garlic
But
juice.
they didn't know that. And so it has been, and plus our cultural norms about voodoo specifically has demonized, and most people don't know what it is. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that majority of us, in some way or form, during growing up, depending on how old you are, has practiced it, not knowingly of what it is.
I'm from New Orleans. I grew up with it.
So, you know what I mean? I did too, and I'm from New Jersey, but so I think that to me, that was what I got out of it. But
yeah, that was very symbolic, because when you talk about the Native American holding on to their traditions, and let's talk about the power of Annie's character. Annie was the black there were other, so Annie was the primary black woman starring in this movie, and she actually also played in Lovecraft Country. I didn't watch that, but it was also a really powerful.
Right.
But I thought that it was interesting. There was a but for her holding on. Remember, she says that she kept him alive all those years through, the work that she was doing through, and I don't even like calling it voodoo because that's just a negative thing that the white man has called it. So Santa Maria, or whatever we want to call it, right? But
root work or hoodoo.
Root workers, conjurer. Yeah.
OBA.
So
Voodoo is different.
But the point that I'm making is that, but for her not holding on or being entrenched in those traditions, they would not have known what to do. Because remember, when they're in the circle and she's saying, "Eat the garlic." Now, how many of y'all thought that? What's her name, Sister Girl? I thought, oh Lord, she don't want to eat the garlic.
I thought she was gone. I thought she was already gone with them. I
thought she, and then Delroy too, right?
Yeah. It was acting kind of funny.
I didn't originally think that because garlic is rough. I mean, to eat a bulb of garlic.
Now when somebody's getting ready to kill you, somebody gonna kill you.
Eat whatever you tell me in that situation. I'm going to eat it. We're not even going to think about it. So that was interesting. So let's talk about the different characters. Cleo, you want to make your point about the significance that you took from Annie's presence in this film?
Well, I just want to reiterate. Can you hear me? First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I just want to reiterate the master storytelling capacity of Coogler, because when he brought in the Native Americans to alert the racist white folks that they had just let a vampire in their house, that was Coogler making sure that the Native people had some space in the film, and they got some space. Then he went on, to other things. But what I loved about Annie's character is that one of the twins, and I forget now whether it was Shaka, which one it is, but he loved her.
Yeah.
That was very moving.
That was Smoke.
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 Yeah, Smoke. He loved her, and that was so extremely powerful up until the time that he died and went back to his baby and back to her. The whole storytelling movement of the story was like, oh my God. But the point is that Annie was symbolic of, from my perspective, of generations of Black women who are not affirmed in the media, who are not loved in the media, who are not touched in the media, who are not made love to on camera in the media. And I remember when I was watching at the IMAX thing, I think I told Helen about this. I wound up walking out with two of the Black women, and they were just skipping. They felt so affirmed and so seen and so cared about and recognized as human beings who were worthy of love. And they were just skipping to their cars. And we had a whole conversation about that. But Annie was symbolic of Black love, of magic, of power. She was respected completely from beginning to the end, up until her death. She was a respected and revered person. She was never disrespected by those Black men. And even when she walked up to him with a knife and said, "I'll cut you," he backed off and respected her and wound up making love with her.
Right.
So
but their love was so deep that when she walked up and hugged him and kissed him on the ear, and then she ran her hand across his penis and she said, "Your body remembers me."
That's right. That's right. That was powerful too.
Yes, that was very
that was sexual. Yeah, that was sexual totally, and powerful and unique. So one of the I wanted to go back, if I could, just to talk about not letting the vampire in your house. Right, and make a connection between colonialism and all these ethnicities that were in the film. And like, if you look at the Irish were considered, the N-word, they were considered niggers. Right. The Asians, each one of them, as they arrived in this country, and it was one thing I liked too, it was accurate when we saw that these ethnicities, right, worked together in the community. They were able to coexist, right? But segregated to the extent of where they were in relationship to America class. And so the parallel I draw, when don't let them into your house, it was not just a literal thing for me.
Well, if you know anything about vampire lore, in many vampire movies, they're not allowed to go into your house without permission.
Right, without the invitation.
Yeah, I never knew that.
I know that.
I never knew that.
I know that. Right.
But I think it's important to understand.
The other thing is you don't see them they don't see themselves in mirrors. Garlic and the steak. Yeah, those things are the Bible is how weird to say that in terms of Bible of folklore and vampires. Yeah.
So back to Annie. I think Cleo didn't say it emphatically enough. Annie was a healthy Black woman.
She was a heroine. She was a heroine.
Right, but
she's talking about her size now. He's talking about her size now, right?
Right.
Oh, she's talking about she's full figured, yeah.
Yeah, full figure. That's a better word. She was a full figure, dark skinned woman, and this man was, deeply in love with her and respected her right up to the end. And remember, she says to him, "If I'm bitten," or whatever, I don't know what word she used, "you take my life." And he didn't want to do that. So Angela, before you go, I know you got to go, talk about, because I have to tell you all that I did not get the spoiler alert. And when I walked into the movie and I see two Michael B. Jordans, I'm like, what? And I just figure, okay, so one of them is going to get killed right away because, and he doesn't. He pulls this off throughout the entire movie. That was masterful as far as I'm concerned. But Angela, and somebody else put in the chats that the blue and the red hat, which I didn't even pick up on.
I
was
picked up on
symbolic
that
of.
immediately. I was like,
I'm just,
something's going on here with the red and the blue.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure out. Well, I couldn't even keep track of who was smoking, who was Stack. You know, like unless they were affiliated with the woman. But anyway, Angela, so go ahead and talk about your theory on Smoke and Stack and the empathy and all that stuff that we talked about last night.
Well, you could tell from the way they approached every situation that Smoke was the hard-nosed brother, the one with the blue hat. He was the hard-nosed brother. He didn't want to, he was about making the money. He was about, maximizing everything. And then Stack was the brother that was, a little more laid back, the one that was in love with Mary. And, the thing that got me in the end is that even though Smoke seemed to be the hard-nosed brother, when it came down to killing Stack because he was a vampire, he couldn't do it. He let him live. And you don't even realize that because you see him with the stake, you see that scene, and then the next thing he's in the water with Sammy. And so you don't realize, I didn't realize until I saw the scene after, that Stack was never really killed as a vampire.
Yep.
But then if you, and in that scene where he says, he leans over to Sammy in 1992 and says to him, my brother couldn't kill me, but he made me promise not to kill you.
Right.
So anyway, folks, I'm going to have to sign off, but Helen, I want to hear the recorded version later.
Okay. I'll make sure you get it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Angela.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Helen, if I could comment, Helen.
Yes, please.
What I missed, because when they came in at the end, and they're still alive, or whatever the form of alive that they are, in 1992, I didn't see how they got away because I said, everyone burnt up. Why didn't they? And I found out, one of my sons said when he leaned over to talk to Sammy, they showed a cut to a scene of him and Mary running away. So they got away that night. Did anybody else see that? Because I don't know how they, I said, well,
yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even, yeah, that's a good point because I thought they all got burned up. And you're right. No, and they escaped.
They're vampires.
I talked to one of my sons tonight that watched it more closely, and he said they showed them run away. At the end.
I have to watch it again.
Because otherwise, there was no, how did they survive?
No, they ran away before that. They did run away before that.
They ran away like, back at the house when they were at the...
After he killed his brothers, because remember when they were fighting and you couldn't see in the beginning who actually went after, God, I forgot everybody's name right now.
Remick?
No, the brother with the blue hat.
Smoke.
You didn't see who attacked Smoke's woman. We were just talking about her. And remember when he turned around and he said, not you, because it was his brother that bit her.
Oh, it was his brother who bit her?
Right after that is when
he ran
away.
Oh, okay.
He said of all people.
What did you see there? I swear I didn't pick that. I need to see it again. Cleo, did you notice when they got away?
Well, I think the way it was written was there was a distraction. I mean, we didn't have to see them get away. All we had to see was that he was no more. That he was no more in the. All we had to see was that he was no more on camera, and that we never saw Mary get killed. So it made sense based on how
we saw
flowed.
Mary get dragged out of the burning fire.
Yeah, but we never saw a stake go through Mary's heart.
Mary got away. She and Stack ran together because Smoke bit Annie. And then she hollered, "You Annie," and then he grabbed her and they ran out of the building while it was burning.
That's correct. And then he came back, and that's when he had to fight with his brother, but that is correct.
They came back, yeah.
That's correct.
Right.
I will definitely take note of that when I watch it again. So let's talk about Mary. So for those of you who may, I think most people in here have seen it, at least I hope so. So there was Mary, who was a white-looking woman. First, before I do that, Roderick, did you want to add anything to what we were just talking about?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about Mary. What was the symbolism of Mary? So here's this white presenting woman. And Cleo made point of saying that she could cuss like a Black woman. So in real life and in the film,
the fuck out my face with a great Black accent.
Yes, she did. Yes. So in real life and in the film, Mary, that character is saying that her grandfather or somebody was half Black. So she has,
Yeah, she's saying she's biracial.
Right, but
Yeah.
she used the fact that she could pass to go and talk to the white people, and she was
Right.
supposed to be bringing back information. So she was passing with them.
Right. And she was passing in real life because her husband, she was married to, she loved Stack or whichever one. She loved Stack, but she was married to some white man living a life as a white woman in Arkansas. And she's only she's only in Mississippi because her mother just died.
Right.
And her mother had raised the twins. And I didn't so anyway, I thought her role was interesting in that there was this trust factor of a white woman, right? Because she's the only white person in the whole juke joint. And she refuses to leave, right? So that in itself. But then she thought her whiteness would somehow get her some information to, I don't know, to help everybody. But again, the trust was put in this white woman and it ended up being the wrong thing to do. I mean, that's how I took it. That was a symbolism of her role for me. Anybody else have any feelings? And then I was listening to some woman's podcast and she compared the love between Smoke and Annie, which was real love, that they had this undying love that was, they cared for each other deeply. And then she compared it to the love that Mary and Stack had, but that it was superficial. It was more lustful. But then I don't know because he's still with her in the afterlife, so I don't know. But anyway, those are just some of the thoughts.
You can't. They say you can't control who you love. The thing about it is,
that's a whole nother conversation. Don't get me started on that. That's not that simple.
I know. Because we better be.
No, I just wanted to make a point.
Yeah, I hear you. But we got to be mindful. It doesn't negate the history in this country and how white women
Not
have
at all.
oriented us. Right. So I think that's where the movie comes in. Like, the love or lust or whatever that our men have for these white women has not proven fruitful for us as a community and for them as individuals. So I think that was the takeaway for me with Mary.
I just have a question, Helen. And
yes.
So am I hearing, I'm hearing you refer to Mary as a white woman.
Yes.
And my understanding is that she was white passing.
White presenting is probably a better thing to say.
She was a quarter white. She was a quarter Black. Quarter Black. Mostly white woman.
She would have been an octoroon in Louisiana or a mulatto.
Right. So was her mom like half white, half something else?
Her mother,
her grandfather.
Half Black. Her grandfather was half Black.
Not
right.
Black there.
So she had a white mother raising two Black boys in.
I don't think she raised. I think they were somebody. There was a reason they were on that farm. Like
they were taken
when
in.
the father was working. It was something.
Their mother had died.
I thought she raised.
Their mother died, and she nursed them for a time, and they were around. Their family might have been sharecroppers.
You rarely ever see that.
Their father, they talk about how
exactly. You rarely see that.
So during that time, there was no. I don't think the whole concept of mulatto. I think it would have been like the one drop rule that they have been applied to her.
Octoroons. They called them octoroons.
Yeah, but in 1932, Phyllis is right. The one drop rule would have applied.
Well, her mother would have presented as more Black than she would. She's only got a quarter. She got all these other grandparents, all these other white people.
Because it sounds like everybody after the grandfather married white.
Right, but the intent, but again, the intention here is textured storytelling.
Exactly.
Of course, we get kind of passionate about it all, but the bottom line is that Coogler was putting in the kitchen sink and putting everything in there for us to actually witness, think about, and be affected by, because
Do
she
what
was
we're doing.
white and she was she was in love with one of the twins, and he was trying to keep her out of his life so she could because it was dangerous for both of them for them to be together.
Yeah.
And she wanted him anyway, and he was like, no. And so that was just part of the in my opinion, Ryan Coogler illuminating the dynamics that we face and that we live with even now, but especially back then.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was the one that made
and all this. So because when she went out there to talk to the vampires, she went out there to help.
Right.
That's not to help the vampires. She went out there to help the black folks in the juke joint.
She thought her whiteness.
So does anyone recall, and this is really in contrast of what you were saying, Helen, about how it wasn't real love compared to the one between Annie and Smoke. But if you remember that scene where the other brother was telling her, I think about you every single day, but I want you to you're safer there. They had grown up together,
That's
and
right.
I feel like I'm finding a lot across social media since I only saw it like 2 days ago, but there seems to be this apparent colorism that is rearing its ugly head in our community, that is just like, well, she's a white woman, she was light skinned, she's passing, so we just like, no, she wasn't one of us, when they clearly identified her as family,
yeah,
someone that they raised, and he loved her. It was
But see, but what people are responding to though, and this is my assessment, and also with these sisters that I escorted out of the IMAX situation. Let me breathe. Please, let me get this up. Let me say this without interruption, if possible. Like I said before, Ryan Coogler was trying to trigger, provoke, and get us to critically look at our experience as people of African descent in this society. However, the sisters that I escorted out of the IMAX theater were so glad to see Annie and so glad to see the mulatto rejected. Because what they're used to seeing is the football player, the actor, the millionaire, the famous black man chasing Mary, or the equivalent of Mary.
I just have a question. Are you saying that
let him
I'm sorry, just a piece you said.
Let him finish, please. Let him finish his thought, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just clarification. I wanted to understand. Were you saying that Annie was rejected? I'm sorry, the mulatto was rejected, and Annie was loved.
What I'm saying is that any piece of rejection that Mary got from a black man was appreciated by some of the black women who saw the film, because they're used to seeing women who look like Mary, or straight up white girls, or light skinned girls, if you will, get the boy or the man, the black man, almost all the time. That's what they always see in movies, in commercials, in real life, in all over the place, even now more than ever. So the idea of a black man rejecting her, and in contrast to Annie being loved by one of the twins, was welcomed by some sisters who are hurt and tired of that mantra and that narrative.
That trope, yeah.
I mean, I mean, I've been reading a lot of the thought pieces too. There's been so many since last week, and I mean, I think as a Black community, we do get a little too, emotional about that subject. I mean, it's real though. I mean, you really ever do see the handsome guy with a plus size woman who's dark skinned. So I think a lot of women who kind of fit, that's a big deal, right? We really have to see that.
But we keep talking about Annie, which is important, but there were two black women.
Oh, Mary.
Yes.
No, I'm not talking about Mary. I'm not talking about Mary. I'm talking about
the other one. Yeah.
The one who got ate out. Pardon my language.
Her name was Pearline.
She was a beautiful, shapely black woman who also was symbolic, and she got the man too. And she was just important as Annie in terms of being a black.
Which one's Pearline now? The one who likes Sammy?
She was a singer, right? She was the other singer. The one who didn't want to eat the garlic.
Right. Yeah, she was beautiful, but so what's your question, Cleo, about her?
My point is that we keep talking about Annie, which is important because she was symbolically important as a dark-skinned sister who was getting love. But Pearline was a dark-skinned sister that was getting love too.
Okay.
And neither one of them faced any level at all, period, of rejection. They were loved, they were made love to, they were embraced, and they were, mean, the young boy was smitten.
Right. So you're saying why all the hate for Mary?
No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying any.
He's just making a simple observation that these were two dark-skinned women who were held.
You saw something that we don't generally see.
Right. I thought you said when you were walking out the theater, some of the women were upset about Mary. I thought you said that.
No. I'll briefly read. Okay.
Sorry.
I can be brief. Pearline and Annie were two chocolate black women who look like most black women in the country, who were being loved, cared about, made love to, nurtured, desired. Brothers were falling in love with them, following them around, and that does not happen in American media. Mary is what happens in American media. And as opposed to Mary being the center and everybody falling all out over Mary, Mary felt some level of rejection by one of the twins.
Right.
And there were some sisters who were flabbergasted and frankly relieved by that because they had never seen that before.
Right.
And not only do they not see that in movies, they don't see that among a lot. I mean, when you think about Hollywood, you think of Samuel Jackson, who's married to a sister that looks very similar to Annie, and Denzel, who's married to.
How about Obama? The same elation we had about Michelle, same thing.
Well, it's kind of similar. There's some gray biracial.
But I'm just saying, she's a dark-skinned woman. Black women were.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
We celebrated her because not only was she black, she was a dark-skinned black woman.
Right. That's right.
We don't.
But what we didn't see, and even though you're absolutely right, Helen, but what we didn't see was Michelle being chased down and loved in a juicy, sexual, erotic, romantic way, and we don't, and we see, and the bombers have come and gone. Films stay. And the majority of the films.
I was just simply making the point that the elation that those women felt is the same elation.
I get it, but I'm saying with the film and saying that in this film with these sisters, and it was funny because they didn't want to say it. We're so used to not saying what we feel. Like some of us still whisper the word white.
But you know what, we say
about
all
racism.
This. But we say all this, and sadly, in real life, Michael B. Jordan would never date an Annie. You know what I'm saying? Like I hear what you're saying, and it's great for the movies, but in real life, these men aren't really. They're not. You saw.
I don't know. He just gave you two examples. I mean,
No, that wasn't. No, he's talking about the movie. Like Michael B. Jordan's type. Like we saw who his other girlfriends.
But Paulette Washington is a dark-skinned woman. Samuel Jackson's wife is a dark-skinned. So I don't know.
Older. I'm talking about like the guys now.
But excuse me, but I think it was the same back then. I don't think that's not some new phenomenon. That's not a new phenomenon.
But let me tell y'all something that's important to consider in terms of what white people do and what white Hollywood does and what Ryan Coogler defied. There are black people, some who are famous, who are loving black people. Loving them down. Like Kerry Washington has a beautiful black husband who is black all day long, but they never show her with her husband. They show her with that white man in Scandal. So what Coogler did was defy all of that and show black women being loved. Now, this is
True.
what Michael Brown, what Michael B does in his life. I don't know. I've never seen that. I haven't followed that. But I'm talking about the film and what happened in the film. Maybe because of the film, Michael's gonna stop tripping. I don't know. But my point is that those sisters were skipping to, and these sisters were in their 50s and 60s. They were literally skipping to their cars.
Yeah.
They felt so. And then what's
Mhm.
go on? No, continue.
No, I was gonna move us on because I know we're getting
Sure.
into time. We still have not talked about Delta Slim. Let's talk about the Delroy Lindo, and we haven't heard from you for a minute, Roderick. What's your take on that character?
Well, I mean, he was the blues, right? He was the friend, the hustler, the take no prisoners guy. But the one thing about this film that stood out for me is that often we see that people had to take sides.
Mm-hmm.
You are either a vampire, or you're pro-vampire or anti-vampire. Just to go back just slightly, those Native Americans were vampire slayers. Right, that's what I saw them as. But and here you see everybody in the juke joint kind of aligned. But one individual goes out to say, I'll try to reason with them. Right, and it speaks to the character. So, when I teach a class in filmmaking, I talk about or directing. I talk about that you learn about the character by the character's entire makeup. So race is just one thing, the external appearance, but habits and who they ally with rather, in the context of the story. And so there was, if I can say that what Cleo is that there was a solid balance, right, and in the characters to keep the dramatic context flowing and us moving, and even feeding into our conversations that we're having right now. I hope we get to the point in our dialogue about what happened when the Klan arrived.
Oh yeah, that's powerful.
Can I just ask this one question about that character?
Yeah, but I want to make sure that we talk a little bit more about Lindo.
I want to talk about Lindo. Why
did
Lindo react like that?
No, I mean, I didn't mean at this moment. I just meant
when he saw the incarcerated men in the
exactly that was a thing for me.
What was that about?
And that I wanted to talk about what that was about. And did anybody notice the symbolism of the blood splattered cotton? When the blood splattered on the cotton, that resonated with me. But before we do that, Shakira has had her hand up for a minute. Shakira, are you wanting to talk about Delroy? Because I think we do need to talk more about Delroy and the music and the blues and all that.
Yeah. I think that as I said, I think the music was a whole character in the movie. Delroy, I think, represented the lineage of that music, and how it came from far and wide. And in fact, that one scene in the movie when they were when the crescendo of the beat, like it was almost like a drum beat, they were stomping their feet and the music was playing, and it looked like the Native American community and the Asian community were in their costume, dancing among the folks from the community that were there. It was almost like that music was it was like root music, and the music played almost like a balm for the people that were in there. I just think that the music was just so it was critical to that piece. And I think Lindo represented that, among other things. I think he represented other things too, when you talk about that chain gang. But for sure, he represented the lineage of the music and how the music brought us through so much of that.
For sure.
I would like to mention.
Yeah, go ahead, Cleo. I wanted you to talk. You're going to talk about when he's in the car.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about. I'm a context person, and everything has a context. And in short, the twins started off bad. The twins started off, I mean, good bad. They started off saying to that white boy, and I'm paraphrasing, if you bring your ass over here at all, I'll kill. In the very beginning of the film, he said, don't mess with
the first plan that crossed this line is going to be a dead clan.
I'm trying not to cuss, but don't F with us. So he established, for lack of a better term, testosterone, and taking no stuff and having no sensitivity in terms of dealing with white folks from the very beginning. But what Delroy did was he talked about a friend who had been castrated, who had been brutally murdered, who had money, and then he was busted with it and he was brutally murdered. He embodied that. He embodied the pain of this film. He embodied the reason for the blues. He embodied the source of the blues. He also embodied sacrifice for Black people, because he's the one who sacrificed himself to make sure everybody else lived or had the opportunity to potentially live.
Right.
But you got to talk about him in contrast to the twins, because the twins were not talking about castration. They weren't talking about nothing that made them vulnerable, except to their love for women. So he was very important.
He was the patriarch of this movie.
Yeah. He also was the blues soul of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's coming from a different generation too, right? So he experienced things that maybe the twins hadn't.
And then Ryan Coogler tried to fool us with the garlic when it came to him. Remember, we couldn't tell he was really a vampire or not. He was just having
he said the liquor.
An alcohol issue, and that he was an alcoholic. All that stuff was very important, because alcohol, which he articulates in the car, was his anesthesia.
Right.
Exactly.
And a lot of Black men relate to that and experience that. And I think that's why Coogler put him in this film the way he did. I think that's why Coogler supported his ideas too, because he knew that Delroy's life and what he brought to the film in terms of wisdom and embodiment was very, very important.
Somebody said last night, I don't know if it was you or if it was Angela, who said that when he stands up in the car and talks to the guys on the chain gang, that was improvised. Was it you who said that? Was that Angela?
No, that wasn't improvised. What was improvised was in the car. What happens around when a young man starts playing the guitar, which he never does play. They insinuate he's going to play, but then they change the scene. But that whole part, that emotional part that he talks about, the lynching and everything, was all improvised. The reason that he affirmed or referenced the chain gang, because he had a resin with them. He knew them. He understood them. He had been there.
Right.
And that was another reflection of the soul of his character in terms of what he had gone through and why he sung the blues.
Yeah. So somebody put in the chats, Tracy says, Delroy represented wisdom gained through lived experience, which, yes, included trauma. And, the blues come out of trauma.
Yeah.
Let's talk a minute about, we didn't talk at all about
You can't be a Black man in America without have experienced some trauma, particularly in that era. During that time. I just want to express one thing. It's interesting that the twins left the North and went back south.
Yeah.
They talk about that though. They said Chicago ain't nothing but Mississippi with
buildings
or something like that. Yeah.
And what that took me to is we'll meet a lot of elderly Black folks who are from the South who don't want to talk about it. Their experience, their memories of it are so horrific that to this day, they will not talk about what happened to them in the South. And that's what that took me there with that. I want to talk for a minute about cornbread. And what was the symbolism of his presence in the film? Anybody?
I love cornbread.
You said what? Blessing.
I said I loved cornbread. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. Okay. Why?
Well, he was a good old regular boy who had to go pee. You know what I'm saying?
Remember when he tried when the I don't know which twin tries to get him to come with him, and he's disrespectful. He's disrespectful to his language is disrespectful in front of his wife, and he steps to him. So that too was powerful. But go ahead, Cleo.
Oh, that was very powerful, Helen. And again, probably for fanboying Coogler so much, but I'm talking about his writing and how one of the twins was disrespectful. But again, it showed women having agency because he said something about his wife, and his wife stepped up and said, "Wait a minute, money? What's up?
How much?
How much? You go make that money, dude. You go make
Sent that man to his death over some money.
Yeah, after BS, he can say what the hell he want to say. He getting ready to pay you. Go get that money."
Right.
And she was a sister too. I want to reiterate the consistency of showing sisters with agency, because she didn't fall into no victim role when he was talking that smack about "I'll fuck you." Y'all know what he said. She didn't get into no small victimized where she was like, "Oh, you gonna pay him? Okay, you go take care of that." And he was her partner. She was his partner, as opposed to some submissive person who can't take a joke.
Right.
So cornbread was. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was going to say the roles for the women here. The women were very powerful in this movie.
Yeah, I loved it. And
Tracy,
go on.
I was going to say, Tracy, can you expand on your comment? Because that's something that I don't really, the whole shared memories thing.
Yeah. Talking about, Tracy put in the chats the different ways that Cornbread tried to gain access to the juke joint based on the shared memories brain with Remick was interesting. I don't think that would have happened if he wasn't a vampire. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, so just in the same way that he spoke, I don't know if it was Korean or Japanese or whatever, to the wife of the shop owner.
Chinese.
In that same way. Cornbread, there was all kind of manipulative ways. He appealed to the pride. I'm your brother, you owe me. He just kept on trying to gain access. But because he accessed that information, because he was a vampire, but he was kind of comic relief, if you will. He wouldn't have been able to do that without that connection.
Yes, brilliant.
Glad that you brought up the because I guess when the vampire takes over your soul, it takes over everything about you, because they were able to speak Chinese too.
Right.
And what about the Chinese woman? Her character was strong because she was like, "I'm going out there to get my husband." I mean, she was fighting for her husband. And then she even challenges. She said, "You call yourself a warrior. Now is the time for you to show up. Like, what the hell are we doing?" She was like, "I'm down for it. Let's fight."
Is she the reason that they were able to get in the house?
Yes.
Because they had to be invited. So
yes, she
the reason.
She invited them in. She invited them in.
Yep.
Did she?
She did.
Wait a minute, back up.
She did.
The Asian lady invited who in?
The Asian lady.
Because I said, how did they get? They had to be invited.
She called them out.
Her actions allowed them to come in, because she crashed out and set the place on fire.
No, they were holding her mouth, and she said, "Come on in. Let's do this." Something to that effect. She told them you have to be invited in. And she said, "Come on in, you MFs," or something. She cursed. And that's when they said, "It's on and popping."
Yes.
Because eventually they were going to have to.
Because she thought that they were going to go get her daughter. They thought they were going to go get her daughter.
And didn't care about the other Black people bodies.
That's right. That's right. What else was brilliant about that, and you just covered some of it, is that she told her husband before he turned, "Look, we ain't here for this. We're not here to fight for these Black folks or do none of this. Let's go."
Right.
We came to help with the party.
Yeah, we came to do our thing, but let's get out of here. And she was never
to make some money.
She was never like hooked up in the black scene. She even complained about the garlic and said, "Could you find some pickled garlic?"
Right.
But she,
I think it's probably. I think part of that.
Community.
I think part of that is she knew about the brothers, the twins, and I think her husband had a side to him that lended to illegitimate or illegal activities. So I think it could have been. Yeah, I don't think it was rooted in racism. More so than
well, I didn't call it racism.
being
What I
able
was
to
calling
make
it.
it. No, I know. I'm just saying that somebody listened to that might have thought that you were saying that.
I'm saying that they were culturally.
Piggyback.
I'm saying they were culturally self-contained, and they were culturally connected to what their cultural interest. Because if you ever go to most Asian restaurants, whatever, their family and they are running that. Now, when they get demands from the local community to be inclusive by policy, they'll do it because they have to. Otherwise, it's just them. And even to this day, they're not really a part of the community that they set up shop in. They just selling their goods, and then they go about their business.
That's true. And when you go in their restaurants,
And even there, even where they have their shop, they had a shop for the white folks across the street, and they had a shop for the black folks on the other side of the street.
Oh, right.
And remember how she negotiates with him.
They did, yeah.
And remember how she negotiates with him for the cost of the banner.
Do the artwork.
But listen, I just want to share that community that was reflected in Coogler's movie was a reflection of a real community down there in the Delta.
That's right.
Where meaning a mixed community where the Native Americans, the Asian Americans, and the Black Americans.
But how they got there, and this is just some historical knowledge, how they got there is they were working on the railroad.
Right.
Initially, the Chinese were working on the railroad. And the railroads always went through black communities instead of inconveniencing white communities.
Sure.
And that's one of the ways that they became connected or in close proximity to black communities. And then they start selling their goods in black communities.
Can I ask a question? What was it
Still doing
about
that
the
now.
plantation money? I heard something about plantation
The
money.
wooden nickels.
The wooden nickels.
The sharecroppers weren't paid.
About that.
Who's paying them that kind of money?
They were paid with funny money.
No, what happened was stores, let's say Target or gift cards. They were like gift cards of the day. Stores had their own coins and their own money for you to go to their stores and buy goods from their stores. So that money would not work in the general money system, but whoever got those coins could go to Target, the equivalent of Target, and get some stuff.
So were the plantation owners paying them that kind of money so that they could? Is that what was happening?
Yes, because that way they made sure the money never left, did it?
That's what I thought, and that's why they didn't make any money at the club.
They made sure the people never left that were working on the plantation.
They
Right. It was credit.
They would buy cheap and they'd sell it to them overpriced and give them nothing but wooden money so they couldn't spend their money anyplace else.
That's right. That's right. That's why somebody once said, "Don't take any wooden nickels." That's where that terminology came from. Don't take any wooden nickels.
Yep.
Master manipulator. Anthony, your hand is up. Go ahead, Anthony. What's your question or comment? Anthony? Okay, I don't know. He has his hand up, but maybe he can't unmute. All right, so we're gonna move on. Anthony, when you unmute, just chime in.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, we.
Great. Yeah, quick question. This is awesome, and I appreciate being a part of this. Quick question. Can some of you, perhaps Cleo or others, speak about how religion was used as a way to manipulate Black people in this, and how Annie represented our spiritual wisdom?
Well, there is a difference between the two things, and I think you probably know that, Anthony, that you injected spirituality into it. The religious piece was when the thing first started with the young man and his father,
right?
Because he was a minister and he was in the church. But that was one of the few times the church came up ever. Was whenever what happened for the most part was the bag and the incense and the ashe and African spirituality dominated this film in comparison to traditional Christianity. As a matter of fact, the young man, when he went back home, because that's one place that he knew about, he still didn't let go of that guitar. And he never ever defied his wishes, which was supposedly with the devil, and joined the church and worked for his father. So Coogler brilliantly just brought that into the whole piece. But interestingly enough, Christian religion, it was not the dominant spiritual force in this film. It was African religion and African spirituality, I should say.
But I thought that was the message.
Yes.
I thought the
Yes.
message
The
was
thing about
that we didn't let
one
go,
of-
that our traditional beliefs that
Yes.
got us through.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
and
man,
then
I'm
the-
sorry, I got
then the-
stuck on the phone.
I'm sorry. And then in the end, he doesn't, like you said, like the whole thing with him not letting go, he goes back. You know what else we haven't talked about? When Smoke or Stack, I don't know which was which, is telling him, this is your last, you're a good person. This is your last night that you're going to be in this juke joint. Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think, he was torn, with his religion, Sammy, because, even when he's lusting for this married woman, he didn't care. He saw her, he wanted it, that was that, right? But yeah, so yeah, Anthony, I don't know, does that answer your question in terms of the religious aspect of it?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. I just thought I thought it was brilliant how they started in the church and they ended in the church. And Cleo was correct. In the midst of all of that, though, the African spirituality dominated. But Christianity is so dominant in our culture that it certainly plays a part. And I think Annie was awesome, but her character showed that spiritual wisdom that we have.
But
Now
for
that
that,
you, but now that you
but
now
for
that you
her
mention,
wisdom, they would not have even made it as far in that situation as they did. I
That's
think
right.
that was the end. That was the crux of it. Like,
Yeah.
don't we turn our back, like even on medicinal things, what have you. We have just been trained to think poorly of those things that we brought with us. And I think
And even when, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but even when someone was trying to get into the house, I think it was Smoke or Stack, one of the Michael B. Jordan characters, he was saying, don't listen to that crazy talk by Annie. He was trying to trick them into saying to not believe Annie's gut or Annie's spiritual religion. So they used that to play on them to get into the house or to trick
right.
them.
Yet the devils wanted Annie.
Of course.
Just like the devils wanted the young man.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to underscore before we forget, because this is probably quite forgettable compared to all the other things, is that they took care of that young boy.
That's right. Yeah.
He was nurtured, he was loved,
Yeah.
he was cared about, and they cared about each other. And that's another dynamic that occurred in this film that really makes it to Hollywood, is Black men nurturing and caring about and loving each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted that, and that's why Stack told him, tonight is your last night.
You good.
I don't want you to go through this. I don't want you to be suffering like this. I want you to have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very powerful to underscore, because it's another nuance that Coogler brought into the film, I think, for us to actually either unconsciously experience or consciously experience, because there was so much to experience.
He was vulnerable.
Yes.
Right, to all parties there.
Yes.
One of the things I want to share, if we look at the genre, right? If you look at horror, it is all, and it goes back to something I said a little earlier about this movie is about taking sides. That horror is always really about moral battle between good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that evolve in so many levels, or progress in so many levels in this film.
Well, speaking of
the characters, when they have to take sides, they got to pick a side.
But speaking of that, and I think this underscores your point, and Helen tried to get us to deal with this earlier, but we kind of glossed over it, was the Irish piece. He made sure that they did the river dance. He made sure, he made sure that we were crystal clear. These are white folks with a Y, not with an I, but WHYTE, white.
Right.
And he had them doing the river dance because from my perspective, one of the things that Coogler was establishing was who the devil is.
Yeah.
Without question, who the devil is and what the devil is trying to do and how the devil
And what
tries
I
to
should do about him.
and how the devil tries to take black resources and use black power, black genius, black brilliance, black music, black culture, black energy, black capacity on their behalf. And
He
stay
says
away.
that, Leo. He
Yeah.
even says, "I want your music."
Yeah, he did say that because that's what Coogler with his brilliant ass wrote. And he was like, the message to black people was stop giving up your beauty, your genius, your capacity. Love each other. Care about each other. Stop allowing whiteness and evil to determine how you behave and how you see the world. Love black women. Love each other. And make sure that you're loving your children, even if they're not here no more.
And get back to your roots.
I think what's also fascinating too is Coogler's genius in casting. Like when I think about themes and the nuances of this film and like the actors, even the white ones, like how he got the white vampire, like it was just genius in their role and just their portrayal of those characters. Because it's a complicated movie and dialogue and everything, and he just was genius in his casting.
Yes. Absolutely.
So let's talk about and Roderick. This was important to you too. The conclusion when the Klan shows up because he vowed. Remember, he says the first Klan that crosses this property line is going to be a dead Klan.
He sure did.
So now, when we're at the end of this movie and all those Klan guys, why were the doors locked when they showed up? What was the symbolism of that?
I just think it's circumstantial. It's like it's better to have this scene outside where we can see that they get their asses toe up. You know, if they were in a barn and there's darkness and shadows. No. We want this ass whooping to be on Jump Street, not in no damn barn.
Right.
And so
there's been historical situations, factual that where white folks in the Klan have approached, military men and attempted to run their power, run through them violently, and not knowing that these men were trained and skilled and fearless and prepared.
And had guns. And had guns.
Yeah. Can someone explain the part about how he got the guns, right? Wasn't there like a bin or wasn't there like a trunk?
Yeah, he had them on his truck. He had them on, and at some point in the movie, there's question about where are the guns, and they were outside. Y'all remember that?
They were gangsters, y'all. They were gangsters in Chicago.
They were Al Capone trains.
But they've also been all around the world. I think they've been in the war. That's why they had them.
They have been in the war.
That's right.
Yeah, they were soldiers.
They were soldiers.
They've been in the war.
And they also were black in the 1930s, surrounded by white folks.
Yep.
And they told him, pardon me for being redundant, they told him, don't F with us, okay? If you even do something that look like Fing with us, we got you. You got it coming. So they had to have the guns. They had to have the backup. It fits the theme and the arc of the film.
Okay,
and he fulfilled his promise to them at the end.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
But can we talk about? I was in the theater, so I was telling Cleo and Angela last night. If you all remember from Queen and Slim, I was terribly disappointed at the end of that movie. Because if anybody saw that, remember they had the option to get on that plane and just go live their lives in Cuba. And instead, whoever wrote that film decided, we're going to let these Negroes stay here and get killed. That pissed me off. So I was sitting in that theater the other day, and when the white sheriff or whatever, the Grand Wizard, was on the ground, and he's still talking trash. He's on his way out. He's calling this man a nigger, and who asked who for a cigarette? I don't know. So, And I'm thinking, you better kill. And Annie's telling him to you can come, but you can hold the baby. Come with us. And I said, not before you kill that fat bastard. I ain't gonna lie. I was just like, you got to kill him. He had killed everybody else. Was anybody else moved by that? Did anybody else have that emotion around that? Because I thought Ryan Coogler let us have a happy ending. I thought.
That's
Helen,
right.
I sat next to my friend and looked at her and I said, this is why white people are afraid of us. Because the moment we learned how to shoot a gun in the war, we didn't put them with. They didn't just let them come and destroy the city. They were armed. That's why they ended up blowing up the city.
That's right.
I really appreciated that last scene, and I'm glad you pointed that out. That because so often in films we don't get that moment where the dirty, devil, mean white person gets their due. So I really appreciated that Coogler did that, and it's ironic. It's ironic that, and I'm not blaming you, but it's just ironic that you juxtaposition, and maybe that wasn't what you were doing. Coogler's movie with the other movie you referenced, Slim,
who wrote the
Slim and
ending
whatever,
of the
because the only thing about
he wrote it.
That
no,
movie,
the other movie where the people don't get on the plane.
Yeah, Clean and Slim, whatever
Yeah,
it was
that's
called.
Queen and Slim.
Queen and Slim.
Black
Can I? Yeah, Queen and Slim.
Oh, wait a minute, let him make his point.
Her name is Lena.
Yeah,
Queen. Make his point, y'all.
Thank you. Queen and Slim, because so many things about that movie were the absolute opposite of what Coogler's film represented, and I actually walked out of the theater of that movie because the character Jodie Tony Smith, she was so disrespectful to the male character. No love really between them. They were just making do and got caught up in a situation. In Coogler's film, there was love. There was appreciation
so
of
let me
Black
be
people.
clear that the only comparison, I was just comparing the ending.
I understand.
Because the ending in Queen and Slim was like, are you kidding me? These Black people had an opportunity to go on and live their lives, and they stayed to do what?
But we didn't.
And of course, they were killed anyway.
It wasn't written for us. It's written for the Black person never succeeds.
Right.
I'm just comparing the endings, y'all.
But I don't think he had to kill that Klan guy because he was in there with all those other people. He shot everybody up. Who
was the director on that one anyway? Was it a Black director?
No, that was a black. It was a Black woman. It was a Black woman.
Black woman who wrote it and directed.
It was a same gender loving Black woman who's mad at y'all for calling her dykes and not accepting her. Who wrote that film? That's a whole nother. That's another thing.
I think it's Lena Waithe. I think it's Lena Waithe.
Lena
Waithe. That is correct.
She's still dealing with her anger toward Black people for rejecting her, and she has issues with Black men, and she had all these things going on with her. That
Somebody
Ryan
financed
Coogler
that film, and they decided how they wanted that film to end. People financed that film.
But Shy is amazing. She does The Shy, and I love that.
Well, I don't know about the back, but isn't The Shy about selling drugs?
Bonnie and Clyde?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wait a minute. Y'all, we getting caught up in that. I just wanted to say we had a happy ending.
Yeah, but I want to.
Yes, it did.
But I want to talk about. I want to fanboy a little bit more and talk about Coogler's genius. Coogler was not letting us just have a clean killing of him. There was a cigarette banter. And it looked like it might go into okay, I'm not gonna kill you. It looked like there was some friendliness going on, and that he was not. Then he shot his ass.
Oh, Lena Waithe did the screenplay, but the director was Melina. Sorry, I digress, guys.
No,
so that was my takeaway. Did anybody else? Roderick, what did you want to add about because I know you said that was important. You wanted to make sure we talked about the conclusion.
Yes,
well, actually, that isn't the conclusion. But go ahead.
But my point being is, when we watch films, we watch them from the context of what is going on in society, right? And what is going on in the film, and then we also have where our position, and today's social climate, political climate, to see, a brother shoot down an army of Klansmen in the South is pretty provocative and challenging.
Like Django provocative.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't tie in the two.
I'm just saying.
I know, yeah, I do. I agree. Django's was a different context.
Different.
But the beauty of Django was to see white men paying for their evilness.
Yeah, but see, you mixing apples and oranges, Helen, and you provoking by saying that because there's some problems with Django. There was some
okay, well, y'all just taking it too far. I'm simply making as a lay person as an audience person watching the movie. Both of those situations were. I mean, I had no interest in seeing Django because I'm like, what the hell is funny about slavery? But what was enlightening to me was when he started shooting up and whipping people who had been shooting up and whipping us. There was a joy that came with watching that, which was the same with at the end of this movie when he kills this man, all these Klansmen. Yeah, so y'all taking it deeper than I'm trying to go. I'm just very surfacely making comparisons.
No. You're taking it deeper than I'm trying to go, as I see it. And if I can, all right. So in this movie, right, the self-defense was just. In Django, right, Django killed innocent people as well. And so when you look at the narrative about Black men and their behavior around violence, it feeds into the negative narrative, Django, I believe. This is about self-defense.
I think any white person that was killed during slavery by a Black man, it was in self-defense, you know. And there were a lot of innocent Blacks, so I can't even go there with you. Sorry, Roderick. No. Any Black person who took a stand against white people who were beating, raping, whatever us, it was in self-defense. So it was in defense of Black folks. So yeah. Did anybody else?
Again, let me qualify. I just want to qualify. I'm talking about it in context of where we are in society and how we look at that. That's and what's going on in society. That's all. Whether it moves us to go out and get guns because we see this as success, or whether it moves us to sit down and protest.
Why not do both? Why not do both?
Area.
Can we talk about Kathy's comment? That's a good one, Kathy. It's very provocative. Do you want to talk about it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear I didn't hear.
Kathy has I kind of like. I mean, it's very provocative. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I'll repeat it. What I said was, I was still sort of disappointed at the end of Sinners when it seemed like the white-ish woman still gets the Black man in the end, even after death, or into vampirehood.
Yeah.
Conversely, Annie ends up with Smoke. So I mean, I hear what you're saying.
It's indicative of real life, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about yeah, but
you're talking about Annie. You're talking about Mary.
Mary, yeah. So
about Mary, yeah.
The Black women were killed, and the white woman, white appearing woman, lives on to get the Black man.
Yeah, that was yeah. Can't ignore it.
Yeah.
Rochelle, your hand is up.
He was
Rochelle,
a vampire. He wasn't alive, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I had to step away for a moment. But did anyone think twice about, and I'll speak of Cornbread, number one, but also even the Asian man, father. So by them getting involved with this and then ending up vampires, that left their wives to raise their children as single women. Was there any thoughts about that in terms of?
So the Asian lady ends up a single. I'll say that again.
No, she dies.
But she was kind of like, she's saying she would have wound up a single mother. Like
in the
beginning, if the husband dies, I see what you're saying. If the husband had died, she would be a single mother, but she ends up dying too.
Okay, that's that. But then, but Cornbread definitely, and if I remember correctly, she was pregnant at the time. But
yeah.
So our men going off to this and being villainized or demonized, what have you. And then they are left, these women or this woman are left as single mothers. Now, truly, those who ended up as vampires were all, it was diverse. It's not like it was just men or what have you, but somehow that stuck with me.
He was
I mean, it's almost symbolic of when, like, a lot of the black men, slaves had kind of, a lot of them got killed or whatever and left or got separated from their wives in slavery, and the women were left by themselves to raise their kids. It's almost kind of the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Where black women are always kind of left alone to sort of raise the children, do all the stuff while their black men get lynched and killed and sold away. You know what I mean?
Right. And to that point, notice that this did not, I didn't see any kids that were, vampires. I don't know if that was purposeful in that he didn't show any kids as vampires.
Well, if you didn't see it, it was purposeful.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's no kids.
But I never thought of that until just now.
There were no kids because it's a juke joint and kids aren't allowed.
Oh, they still.
But were there no kids? Because it seems to me, was Remick the only vampire prior to him showing up at these white people's house?
Yes.
I thought there were more. How could he be the only
we didn't see
vampire?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
The Native Americans killed him.
By the Indians.
Right, the Native Americans might have killed him.
He was the only one, and he was old. He wasn't young.
Well, he came there yelling about his wife, but it probably was a lie. He said, they got my wife.
I don't know. Watching sci-fi, I don't recall if I ever seen vampires, children portrayed as vampires. Maybe like teenagers.
No, in Salem's Lot.
Twilight.
In Salem's Lot, one of the little fat kid becomes a vampire.
And not only that, let's stop.
There were no kids because that's what Ryan wrote. That's all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's all it is. But the one thing I want to mention real quick though was somebody referenced a moment ago about Mary and one of the twins living at the end of the film, and what that policy is indicative of in terms of Ryan's extremely thoughtful mind is what do you call it when you do another movie? What's it called? A
sequel.
A sequel, yeah. That could be some
right.
A teaser for a
my son
sequel.
said he can't wait. He saw that. He said, "Oh, the sequel's gonna be great."
It could be.
Yeah.
There could be a sequel.
They're not living, right?
I won't see it. They're not living.
No, well, they never die. Like they're gonna live on. So
they're vampires. They're living vampires. Yeah.
I heard him discuss the movie today.
So
right?
vampires.
He did mention sequel. He did mention that he worked out a deal that he will own this film.
Yeah, he did.
No, I don't
what do you guys think of?
But I'm gonna own this.
What do you guys think of Sammy? Like, okay, so he's older now and he's playing in this jazz joint. I mean,
in Chicago. He followed his dream. He's in Chicago.
Yeah, I guess.
Let me ask you, Roderick.
Yeah.
First of all, let me ask how many people left the theater before you saw what those what are those sections called, Roderick, in the movie when they show the credit, then they show more film? Like, what do you call that part of the film?
Like in Black Panther, they did that.
I know, but Roderick is the filmmaker.
They're teasers.
What are it?
They're teasers. They're teasers.
Teasers, okay.
Just teasers.
And the whole idea is to get you. The whole idea is to get you to think about that there will be a sequel.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
So how many did anybody leave before you saw the first and then the second? I'm like, okay, because people had definitely left the theater where I was.
Some people did.
I didn't leave. Because if you guys stayed, the soundtrack was phenomenal. They played like all these songs during the credits after, and it was just amazing.
Right.
I never leave Black movies. I always stay to the very, very end.
No, I was too blown away and enthralled to go anywhere. I want to sit there and revel. And I did not know that was the teaser was coming. I didn't care. I was sitting there going, yeah. And I was also tripping off the white people when I first saw that. I was sitting a few seats next to me who didn't know what to do with themselves.
Same. I was in a theater with a bunch of white folks too, and they they seemed to really love it. Like they were, to your point, they were just in kind of in shocked, like afterwards.
Yeah. Well, the people that were sitting next to me didn't necessarily love it. They were like, I think they got the devil equation. I don't think they liked that.
Oh yeah. That's
equation
true.
that much. They
The
look like
white devil.
they look like they probably had a Klan outfit in the
A lot
car.
of these white spirits, vampire. They like their vampire movies. That's their
So
see, that is my point, that the context of the film, the story of the film, the narrative, right? When we experience it and where we are intellectually and politically and financially, right? And what it lends to, if I will, cause and effect. So in an era where we're at right now, when everything around being diverse and inclusive in America is being destroyed, how does a film like that resound to someone looking at it and say, oh, you know, we know what to do. Let's just shoot them all up.
Can I ask?
I shouldn't laugh at that, but people will interpret that.
I tell you one person who ain't laughing at this film. I bet you Trump ain't laughing at this film.
No.
No.
Not at all.
No.
He can see what's going on in this film, and his people surrounding him can see what this film implies in terms of the devil. They ain't laughing.
Can I ask if
No,
anyone...
and the problem is he's not liked by Hollywood. Hollywood does not like him. Right? They're not allies.
I'm talking about white people. I'm talking about white people who are consciously involved in the white supremacist agenda, who like this.
No, I know you are.
They're not gonna like this. They're not gonna like this film.
Can I ask if anyone? Can I ask?
The same reason they don't like what's happening, and the same reason they're moving our objects out of the African American.
That's crazy.
That's right. Yeah.
Same mindset. So wait a minute, Anthony. I know you have a question, but also Diane watched this film in Madrid. Is anybody else on here seeing this movie? I know there were some people in Brazil who might have hopped on this call. Anybody else seeing this movie outside the country? And Diane, what was your experience seeing it in Madrid, and who was in the theater with you?
It was mostly young people. There were some Black people in there, not a lot. But what was interesting to me, because I saw the 10:30 show, it was filled. There was not an empty seat. So they are definitely coming out for this. And I've seen other movies where the theater is not even half full. And I was determined to see it before it was taken away. It's already in its third week here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Michael B. Jordan, he draws a younger crowd, like with Creed. I mean, obviously Black Panther and Coogler's genius, but I think Michael B. Jordan, he's going to draw a crowd across, you know, ethnicities. Like, he's pulling the white.
Well,
folks.
younger.
White, yeah, they love him. White folks love him too. So.
Diane, what is the question that you put here in the chats? I'm not. You can read your question. Your last question.
It was ironic to me. I know that they were vampire hunters, but if he had gone to their community, what was it about their community? And I believe it was their spirituality. He couldn't break through them in order to do to him what he was trying to do to the Black people.
I kind of like that.
And that's why he was running for them.
Yeah, they recognize him right away.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because how come that was my point earlier. How come the Indians, Native Americans, how come they're not killed off and eaten up?
And it's their spirituality, isn't it? They've stayed true to their spiritual.
But they didn't have the break that we had. They weren't disseminated all over. This is
Yes,
my
they
tribe.
were.
You know, not like us. They came in. We got this tribe. We live here. We're snatched out of a country and dragged across. It's different.
Not only that. Let's be clear. Black people.
Melting pot BS.
Black people are a specific and focused target of white supremacist agendas, more than any group, more than Native Americans, more than Asians, more than everybody. Black people, including Africans, because of all the resources Africans are connected to, which run the Western world. We are a specific group of people that are a target. Ask Napoleon. Napoleon targeted us, and there's other people that are targeting us. So they're not interested in nobody else compared to us. We're the primary target in this country and in terms of white supremacists frame of reference.
Why is that?
I think we are highly spiritual. If we weren't, we wouldn't still be here.
Yes.
We're highly resourceful too, though.
Has
Yes,
anybody
I
ever
mean
seen?
that's part of that. When I say spiritual, I say that, well, you know, you look at your ancestors and you look at what you need to do, right, to continue on. You know, so that's implied in what I said.
I think what Diane is saying is that Native Americans had their own religion, whereas we were taught the white man's religion. So like Christianity was basically pushed on us.
That's right.
As slaves. And so we lost our religion when we left the motherland and came to America, and we had to learn the white man's religion versus the Indians were like authentically into the, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they weren't brainwashed into.
And they were on their land. They were connected to land knowledge and land context and indigenous footprints. We were literally those of us who insisted on African ways of being were literally slaughtered.
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly. Like if we wanted to do our African prayers and whatnot, they would kill us. And
that's right.
Look at Kunta Kinte. They tried to cut off his, they cut off his foot. So
yeah, the drum was outlawed, and
yeah.
That's why we masked it. I mean, I think the same thing happens quite a bit with the indigenous Native Americans when you look at history and you look at the Christians going in and trying to save the heathens from the propaganda, heathens from themselves, you know, and to the extent of looking at that or examining that as Christianity or a religion, rather, not just Christianity, is used to control the people.
Yep.
I think that that it, you know, legacy and spirituality and the things that you see greater than yourself, right? Is you can't get rid of it. No one can totally get rid of that. It will always be a part of the identity of that particular group. It may not be as prevalent, but it'll always be. You know, just take the example. I digress slightly with Black women in churches. We know that Black women in churches that attend the church with their chapeaus, right, has we think someone might think it's just about they just like hats, but that goes way back to the continent of Africa.
Yep.
And so there are certain things that no matter what, you know, the oppressor applies pressure that they won't, they're not aware of or won't be able to change the person, the individual's drive, the community's drive to hold on to their beliefs.
And I think Coogler's agenda is that we don't have an oppressor. And that we don't let the oppressor in, and that we don't allow the oppressor to have influence, and that we recognize the oppressor when they're coming, and that we handle them, and that we handle it because the Stack handled it.
Yeah,
and he wants us to handle it.
The gentleman on the phone, I don't know your name, but it's you know, piece that you talk about Christianity in our community, it really brings me to that last scene where preacher boy is walking in with and his father is telling him to drop that guitar.
And
if we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we should.
That was also the guitar that he used to kill the vampire.
Yeah. I kept thinking you said he used the piece of the guitar to kill the vampire?
Yes, he did.
Right, absolutely.
Sliced his head open.
Yep.
he held on to, that was him holding on to our African heritage and beliefs, and and walking into the and refusing to let it go, and is really yes, he used it in the water, and that's what he was able to grab onto to kill the vampire.
But he also that round part was silver.
Yes, it's exactly.
But I also think the implications here also is that he would not be indoctrinated. I'm talking about into his father's realm, that he would not be indoctrinated and he would not let go and go into his father's, frankly, oppressive white version of spirituality.
The thing is that, you're right.
He said, "I'm not letting." He would, and he showed leaving, getting in his car, driving away. And then we see him many years later as an adult playing the blues.
That's that religion piece I was talking about earlier. Yeah. Yeah.
He had to follow his path. When you look at the character, he had to follow his path. It's when, if I can, just talk about structure in terms of filmmaking. Right. That you have your protagonist, right, that's taken out of his world. Right. And he has to maneuver and all these challenges. But initially, he always has his what is called like a super objective, a goal, a main goal that he wants to achieve. Right. And at the onset, we find that he's a bluesman. Right. And music is his spirituality.
Yeah.
Right. And Christianity is his father's spirituality. Now here you have Christianity, right, coming in and saying everything you want, and being as part of your soul that brings you joy and possible prosperity and love, right, is demonized or is evil. Right. And you should move away from that. You should run as fast as you can. And then again, as I see this film, it's picking sides. What side are you on?
But wasn't that reiterated, and didn't we witness that throughout generations? Sam Cooke, most of the singers came from churches.
Yeah.
Well, and they were
Aretha
Franklin. I mean, how many can you actually start naming? And they
Staple
were
singers.
They were looked at as betraying and turning their backs, and so
well, they were literally looked at as doing playing devil's music.
Exactly.
Or being sinners.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the movie.
Yeah. If I may, if I may, I just want to ask. I'm just curious as to what were some of everyone's reaction to the film. For full disclosure, I cried when I watched the film, especially that scene with all the music genres. I mean, that really grabbed me and held me so strongly. And then everything else that happened. I mean, I just felt such a overwhelming appreciation for what Coogler did. I'm just curious if people are comfortable sharing what kind of feelings they had when they saw the film, emotions they had when they saw the film.
I had goosebumps because I understood it. I knew what he meant. We were still connected. We don't always feel it, but he showed our connection from Africa all the way up to the present day with our music and the way we express ourselves.
Yep.
That scene was done so remarkably. Even the piece where they brought in the Asian, and they were all dancing, and I think someone spoke about this earlier. The roof was on fire, and the twerkers. So yes, I thought that piece was done remarkably. And there's also one piece I'm going to bring up. This is on a lighter note, but I thought they could have let the gentleman Chris in when he was saying "let me in."
Oh, the one who they thought was dead. The one.
Y'all had time.
I felt bad for the brother.
Yeah, but it was like you didn't
it was
know
like it was like that. It was like that.
He was the vampire,
Every movie needs a victim.
That was horrible.
Particularly a vampire movie.
For me, if I could, I thought the music piece where they showed all the different genre, the dance and the group, magnificent part. But to have them all slaughtered at the end by the vampires, just
was
it didn't
bad.
equal out for me. I'm sorry. I'm a sucker or softie, but I just didn't want to see that. I love the scene with Smoke at the end with his wife and the baby.
I love
I
that
didn't
too.
need to see him kill that Klansman. I knew he was going to die. He shot everybody else up. I didn't need to see that.
Oh, I did.
Oh, I did.
Okay, but I didn't. We can
I did
I
too.
didn't mind that.
Sorry,
I
Pat.
did too.
I
Took
cheered
that
for it
business, and
loudly.
then he loved on this woman.
Well, if you don't mind, Helen, I have to go in a moment.
Yeah.
So I'll do a summary if I may. I want to ask the Queen if I can do it. Can I do it, Queen?
Well, you're granted, King. Permission granted.
I'm gonna take a centerist approach to this and ask a sister, respect the sister. Okay. And this is also a response to Anthony's question. I was enthralled deeply from the very as soon as the film started. As soon as he was in the church, he walked in with that scar on his face. I want to know where's that? What's up with that scar? And then of course it quickly went into the film. But I have not experienced this in a film probably maybe once before in my life. And I don't remember the film offhand. Where I remember when I was a kid, I really was moved by Claudine because it was the story of my family. My mother was hiding. We were on welfare. My mother was hiding her boyfriend in the closet and all that stuff. But this is another kind of film, and I was floored and blown away, and I was engaged, profoundly engaged from day one of the film till he blew that Klan member away, and I was just that I needed a cigarette and
Don't say it.
The
You just needed
climax. The climax is what I'm saying. It's like the way he took us all through all the intricacies, the culture, the music, the dance, the cinematography, the screenplay, the brilliant acting that was off the chain. Everybody was brilliant. I was just up until that's why I didn't leave, and I'm glad I didn't leave. And I saw the second ending because I was too through. I couldn't get up, and I was sitting there not able to move. And then this second piece came in with the other twin in the octoroon. But I was riveted every second. And even when I went to go see it again on the screen for the IMAX, I was re-riveted. And I was so moved. I think I was so moved is why I went up and helped these sisters who was having a hard time at the top of the stairs. I was just loving Black folks, and I saw these two sisters at the top of the stairs trying to get down this long staircase in the IMAX thing, and they felt affirmed by me. And I was glad to do that because between me, I didn't do this on purpose. This just was a fringe benefit. But between me affirming them, taking their hands and guiding them down the stairs, and they just got finished seeing Pauline and Annie be affirmed, and Cornbread's wife being respected despite being cussed. All the whole thing, and able to watch those sisters like just skipping like kids. They weren't kids, and they hadn't been kids for a long time. But they felt so seen and so excited and so ecstatic. So from the beginning of the film to out to my parking lot, I was just taken. Thank you, Helen, for inviting me to be part of your
Oh yeah, thank you.
your celebration of Black genius and your invitation to all these people, to all of us have a conversation about it. Because I've been talking about it. I don't know if anybody's seen my social media, but do you think I wrote the damn movie? I mean, it's just that's all I've been talking about because I want people to go see this film. But I must go.
Is your social media under your name?
Doing
Yes.
so well.
Cleo.
Take care, Cleo.
What was
Cleo
that?
Manago.
I said, take care.
You all take care as well, and I'll talk to you. Thanks again, Helen. Bye,
Thank
Higgi.
you.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
I just want to circle back and
if
explain.
if you're still interested in hearing what people walk away with.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting ready to do. So I wanted to circle back because for me, Patricia, I need you to understand because and Phyllis too. Where's my Phyllis? Is Phyllis still with us? The reason that I needed to see that man killed at the end was because I was sitting in that theater in Florida feeling very much surrounded by negativity in the air. And the movie had me on pins and needles because I needed to see that we were victorious at the end. And I equated it to what I'm dealing with right now. So that's why, and I didn't scream, the only time I shouted out in the movie was like, kill that bastard. I said something to that effect. I wanted him to be dead. I needed him to be dead because we need to have a victory in the situation in which we find ourselves. And his death to me was the victory that I needed. So for me, the movie was, I was like, I wanted to be there, but I wanted it to end because it was just making me too conscious of what I'm experiencing right now in my life. So that's why it was important for me. And so that's what I was, so to Anthony's question, that's how I was feeling. I was feeling like, okay, and because I could see what the messaging was, and I just needed to have a good ending. I needed to have a happy ending, and him blowing that bastard away was a happy ending for me.
So that's why you kind of brought it about what I believe many people were feeling. And when I talk about filmmaking, in regards to the context of what's going on in society, and then how we articulate, our feelings, or how our feelings are somewhat satisfied, because in every era in filmmaking, if you talk about Black filmmaking in America, are individuals that come up that become heroes are those who are willing to put their life on the line to stand up against, society. From if we go back to, Sweetback and all the other heroes, that it's an opportunity for us to say, yeah, all right, we're not always defeated.
Right.
And
we will not be defeated right now. I think that's what we need to be hearing now, that we are people of resilience. We are people who have overcome all kinds of obstacles, and we find ourselves in the midst of yet another obstacle that we should not be.
We should not fear. We persevere.
Yeah. I wanted to add,
so Kim, Dr. Kim, you had your hand up, sweetheart.
Yes, I agree with you. I wanted him to blow the shit out the Klan, and I told you I was in Boca where I saw the movie, so that was like even better being in that particular area. But what I wanted to add, and I mentioned in the chat at the beginning, I have an 18-year-old, one of my senior students that I counsel at the high school I work in. She told me about the movie, and I remember seeing a clip a while back ago, and like everybody else, kind of thought it was a horror movie, but I didn't really see any advertisement for it. And she came in so excited. And at 18, and having had her own personal, real serious trials and traumas, she was so excited. She picked up on a lot of the symbolism. And I made her tell me the story because I knew when I realized it was Ryan Coogler, I still was gonna get everything out of it. But what was fascinating, when they showed the musical scene, her interpretation of that, when they showed the younger girls, the newer generation, twerking, she saw that as how we have perverted what was once our tradition. And we end up having a conversation about how just because society will sexualize something, that doesn't mean it is not so, that doesn't mean it's so. And it still remains a part of our culture. But I just found that interesting. That was her interpretation of that part. I told her about this meeting. She's excited. She wants us to go see it together again, because she went with a friend who was a white guy, and she was like, I didn't have anybody to talk to because he's white, Italian, whatever, and I just didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So I'm gonna hopefully be able to take her one day after school.
You invite her today?
I did. She's probably working. She's a semi in that she lives with extended family. Because like I said, she has had some challenges. She's making it to the finish line. She will be graduating this year, and she probably had to work. She does have a part-time job. So, but I'm gonna go with her.
The other thing, Dr. Kim, that you noticed, I didn't notice, that the club at the end of the movie was called Pearline. Did anybody else pick that up?
Club was called what?
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah. And when I didn't. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, wait a minute, is that her name? That was just...
Yeah, it was named after the girl that he liked, the married woman that he liked.
Yeah, that one. Oh, that's right. She was married.
Yeah, she was married. He said,
I didn't notice that. That's right. I remember.
She was married.
And you know that was Buddy Guy, right?
Yeah. That was pretty.
It was what?
Buddy Guy, the famous blues artist, at the end.
Okay.
He was 90. I heard him say that he didn't know who Ryan Coogler was, but his grandchildren knew him. So when he wanted to talk to him, he said, I'm going to do this. You know.
I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and
the
young man is actually a singer as well.
Is this was making it's borderline. We're making a deal with the devil. Robert Johnson's story. Which was interesting for me. To kind of say what I thought about the film, I didn't say yes. I thought it's very powerful. I think that folks should see it and look at it within where they are contextually and where we are, socially, and be able to look at what you can do or what they can do to make sure that they stay mentally healthy and can ally with people either they can support or that can support them. Because one of the things that's clear in the context of how the story unfolded is that you need your team. And as I said earlier, people had to pick sides. But when they were inside the juke joint, right, they had to make a decision on what they were going to choose to do. And stay in the juke joint, leave the juke joint. And there are always going to be those dynamics of folks wanting to do the thing that's most safe or do the thing that is most potentially risky. And so the fact that this film was able to show points of view and also kind of allow individuals to live vicariously through the outcome of responding to the injustice works.
Right. Thank you.
We just have to figure out other ways.
Before we wrap it up, isn't anyone else who wants to answer Anthony's question and share what were your emotions?
Yeah, I was deeply moved, but like I said, I saw the movie twice. I was like Cleo, I went to see it in the regular screen and then the bigger one.
Okay.
And what was really interesting to me, because young people, when I say young, they're younger than me, in their 30s, were like, oh no, you're going to go see this. You're going to go see this. And what I've recognized with a lot of them that I definitely talked to is how women in my generation, I'm 64, tended to dismiss African spirituality and really indoctrinate Christianity, at least the ones that I've experienced. They're Bible thumpers. And these 30-year-olds, these 30-somethings, between 30 and 35, have picked that ancestry part up and is standing in it. And,
wow.
And for me, because I know them and watching the movie, and we actually talked yesterday, I was like, wow, this is really interesting to see this like transition and them picking this culture back up and standing in it and wanting to stand in it strongly. So yeah, I was deeply moved.
That's powerful. Carol, what was your
again?
what was your emotion? Carol Chang.
I didn't have a lot of emotion until the end when the guy was getting shot, because I kind of like cheered out loud. But other than that, that was it. I mean, I think I was paying too much attention to all the little things and what everything meant. So I wasn't really, affected too emotionally until the very end.
Anybody else want to share? Renee, you were about to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm going to go after this discussion, which has been great. I definitely going to go see it a second time. So I think I'm going on Tuesday. Yeah, I feel like I need to go back now because I think I've missed a couple key pieces and I definitely need to just take my time and just go through it. So thanks for all the highlights and just all the tips and things because I missed a few things. Now, someone mentioned they did IMAX and regular theater. Do you think I need to see it in IMAX? Because I was just going to go back to regular theater.
Well, they recommend that you see it in IMAX.
Yeah, that's what he likes. Right.
They said $20. I said I'm good. How they don't have senior citizen rates for. Yeah, so I don't need all those effects.
Right. Okay.
It's not effects per se. What it is what you see, because they'll use a particular camera, a wide angle lens, and you're seeing the landscape. You're seeing it as the filmmaker shot it. Right. The story is not taken away. It's just if you're a fan person of filmmaking, you want to see it in IMAX.
Got it. Okay.
I acknowledge Ryan for being able to create content, right? Quality content in an era that represents heroes and heroines, right? That look like me,
right?
And for the young people to be able to experience that is important.
I'm going to share with you guys. I shared it earlier. I'm going to drop in the chat a link from an interview that Ryan Coogler does with Jelani Cobb. And the reason I'm sharing it is because he talks about, from a filmmaker's perspective, how John Singleton and Spike Lee were, mentors of his. And he talks about how he was able to get funding for this movie just through normal channels. Whereas when Spike Lee wanted to do the movie on pay appropriate tribute to Malcolm X, he had to go to Oprah and Bill Cosby. Like he said, they laid the groundwork so that he didn't have to do that. And some interview I saw where he said, I think when he did Fruitvale, he was broke and didn't know where his next dime was coming from. And from this one movie alone, he said he is, financially set for the rest of his life. So,
This movie here.
Filmmakers. I'm sorry?
This movie here. He's set from this movie.
Well,
yes.
he was set with Black Panther.
I think he was good from Panther too, but when you listen to the Jelani interview, he talks about how this movie is 100% him. The others were adaptations of something else or somebody else's story. This movie is his story, and I don't think we mentioned that his wife co-produced it.
Yeah,
this
she did.
Movie deal is unique. This movie deal is unique among movie deals.
He owns the rights to everything.
Deal, yeah, not only does he own the rights, he gets paid from day one, which is hardly ever happens. It never happens as fast. It was, and he said that when he struck this deal, it really was in kind of in honor of his father, I think he said, or his grandfather, or some relationship that he was trying to honor.
It was an uncle. It was an uncle that he was honoring. I could shed a little light also on this, and so I'm a filmmaker. I've worked with Spike. I consider myself artist, friend of John. I've hung out with John quite a bit. Right. Those two individuals are about creating story, narrative that reflect our experience. Some of the things that are in the media, not necessarily accurate. I've read something online and they say this is something to the effect that the first time a film has come back to Filmmaker, right? Which is not true because I worked on She's Gotta Have It, and after 25 years, it came back to Spike. Right, I worked on School Days with Spike as well. When you are as successful as he has been, Ryan, you can and you should get earlier participation in the revenue. Right, everybody was. I've read some things on it saying, "Oh, it's going to crush Hollywood." Right, Hollywood has kind of crushed itself because of the exorbitant amount of budgets that they have, and then they rely more on what they've released before to make them revenue than to open up opportunities to service the viewer audience or variations of viewers audience. Black film traditionally has bailed Hollywood out. Time after time, when Hollywood studios were having a problem, then they made a film, right? Or a filmmaker came in, and that era and brought life back into the studio system financially. I've seen pretty much every film out that had some contact to the marketing to a niche market, black market, and then others. And this is by far the best story, best made film that is out. That is out.
Yeah,
but some of you have to, so some of the stuff that's on the series, these people write, and they just write because they have the opportunity to express their voice. It's not necessarily accurate. And so, yeah, that's great. The film is coming back to him in 25 years. They'll try to force him to do a sequel because this has been so successful. It hasn't even gotten to I'd say half of the possibilities in terms of what this film is going to do. Normally, when you talk about filmmaking, and thank you for the patience in me talking about this stuff, is a film, in order to be successful, has to make 3 times its budget. Right. So if they haven't yet, I'm sure they've made at least 2 times the budget already. So we'll ask him and probably beg him to do another version. And we'll definitely see Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler do another film together, because it's a winning creative partnership there.
They've already talked about collaborating with another movie about the richest African. I forget the name of it, but if you Google it.
Mansa Musa.
Yeah, they're going to be collaborating on that one.
Thank you, Miss Pat. Pat's getting ready to chime out, and she's making somebody else made the observation that this has been analyzed about as much as the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl halftime show. I mean, all over the internet, there's so many people with opinions about this. So, and now we chimed in as well. So.
Right, and we didn't even talk about the red and the blue and the twin thing.
Yeah, this was great.
You could do a follow-up on this one.
Thanks again for this,
the
guys.
second time. I'll see.
Yeah, Keisha, just speak up. Don't raise your hand. We're closing out right now. What do you want to say, Keisha?
Oh, I'd like to thank you for holding this forum. I believe that this film is released at a pivotal time for us in Black culture. And, it's very genre bending. It's a metaphysical film. It had all of the elements. I saw the hero's journey in Sammy's character. Even the title and the theme, Sinners. I saw the juxtaposition of how the juke joint is the sinner's church, and the same people that go to the sinner's church on Saturday night are in the other church on Sunday morning, and how that is a part of the culture, having those things that are, seem to be juxtapositions, but how they're all a part of our story, and our strength. And even, how music was very pivotal in worship, at the juke joint and at the church. Dance, pivotal. It's very, very central, um, in both of these community spaces. And I just saw so much in the metaphysical, how at the juke joint, the dance and the vibration and the flow state opened up a portal, and how all of the dimensions, past, present, and future, became one. They became one in mind first. It was just that was spellbinding. It was just such an experience, and I love the intergenerational aspect of how the teenagers and the millennials and the Xers and the baby boomers can all, gather around this experience, and how we can build in each other, from, just being taken on this journey by Ryan Coogler.
Oh, fantastic.
The one of the things that is a situation is that, Warner, they've had flops, one flop after two flops after three flops, and I think that in relationship to what's going on in terms of our Black people's presence in America, and studios in Hollywood for that matter, they move by money, and the Warner heads need to know, right? They know it because they see it in the coffers, but they need to know that we want to see more of this, and then we can continue. This is not a fluke. We can continue to kind of bring you to a place of success if you continue to give filmmakers opportunities, not just one filmmaker, but different. And I gotta say I'm biased here because I have a film. I make films. I have a film that I'm sitting on that I believe is in this context, but it's contemporary, and what happens when we're faced with a leader like Trump, and what it means to our community, and how do we survive it.
Absolutely.
So, I think we need to let them know that you see, these filled seats mean something. Don't just take the money and run.
Right.
And I'll say that. Thank you so much for
thank you for
including
coming.
me.
I appreciate you. Absolutely. I appreciate your input. You have a different take, and you see it from a different perspective. So that was very refreshing. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Gary. I see you on here. Thank you for referring me, referring Roderick to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, everybody, I'm going to say it's been lovely. Thank you all for coming. Next week, we will have Dr. Bakari Vickerson to talk about depression, anxiety, uncertainty, and how are we coping with all of these things. So he's a psychiatrist. So I don't know about y'all, but I could use I can use that right now. So we'll do that. And then the following week, is that Mother's Day? I think that's Mother's Day. So it's May is kind of crazy. And I'm packing to move and get out of here. So it's a lot happening with me too. Girl, back. Well, you got to move your house. I'm moving back. I'm getting out of Florida. It's a long story, I'll tell you.
I'm
really?
Jersey.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I've given notice on my apartment, and let me stop recording. But anyway, so let me just say, when Black women gather, amazing things happen. This has been another amazing gathering, and I thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next week. Let me stop recording, and we can chat for a few seconds more.